Neptune in Aries, and the call is now to become the hero of your own life. Now, Neptune's primary function is to dissolve. Neptune acts like a solvent, breaking down the bonds that hold structures together without changing their essential substance. In astrology, Neptune doesn't destroy who we are, but does remove what can no longer remain. This is why Neptune transits are often described as confusing and destabilizing and frightening. In close contact with Neptune, and by this I mean if you have, natal Neptune in Aries, now your natal Neptune is going to be conjunct this transiting Neptune. Anyway, any close contact with Neptune can feel like you're about to unravel, or you're losing your sanity. This is something that I've witnessed many times in coaching sessions. Neptune loosens familiar reference points. It erodes certainty, and Neptune takes away what needs to be taken away for spiritual growth, whether we feel ready or not. Neptune presides over dreams and imagination, vision and myth, and it governs the symbolic layer of life, the stories we live inside without always realizing we are telling them. So now Neptune is in Aries and initiates a 14-year cycle that shifts the emphasis dramatically. Neptune dissolves the force, is a dissolving force that meets the sign of identity and courage and agency and initiation. This is Aries, right? This fire sign of identity, self-authorship, agency. The question is no longer what is dissolving, because this is the quality that was really at the forefront when Neptune was going through Pisces. Neptune rules Pisces. It was this dissolving quality emphasized, right? Everything was just blurry and confusing and foggy. Now the question becomes, who am I becoming? Because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's the sign of the self. Now, if you are between the ages of 36 and 42, it's impossible to ignore Neptune, right? It's the first Neptune square in astrological speak. It's when transiting Neptune squares your natal Neptune, and it marks a subtle but profound inner turning. A spiritual quest begins, though it doesn't always announce itself very loudly or clearly, because Neptune is quiet and dreamy and easy to dismiss. Some of you will answer this call if you are between the ages of 36 to 42. Others will use Neptune's energy to escape life altogether, drugs, that kind of thing. Now, this is the fork in the road Neptune always presents. Consciousness or avoidance. Under Neptune in Pisces, so when Neptune was going through Pisces, avoidance was culturally reinforced. We were all familiar with dissolution without direction because that became normalized. Spiritual language was often masked as burnout and self-abandonment and the quiet loss of creative vitality. Now, Neptune in Aries is going to change the terrain. The solvent remains, but now it clears the ground for authorship, self-authorship. So there's this need to self-mythologize. Self-mythologizing is not fantasy or ego inflation. It is the psychological and spiritual process of constructing a meaningful, often heroic, personal narrative, one that allows you to locate yourself as an active participant in your own life. Now, we do this instinctively, by the way. We already create personas to understand who we are and how we are seen or perceived by others. We often reframe hardship so we can survive it, and we'd like to cast ourselves as these resilient protagonists. If you aren't doing that, please start doing it, right? You can cast yourself as resilient and courageous. Artists and public figures, by the way, consciously do this all the time. They consciously blur the line between reality and myth. They create identities very easily, and these identities carry symbolic weight. I'm thinking of for example, someone like David Bowie, who was so good at creating these mythic figures, right? At its healthiest, self-mythologizing answers two essential questions. Who am I, and why am I here? So, to repeat this, Neptune governs myth and story, self-authorship, while Aries governs the hero or the heroine. So, together, these two ask us to stop living the side character in stories built by our family systems and institutions or even cultural expectations, and to step into a narrative where we are responsible for the arc of our own becoming. The cost is high, people, very high, if you're not going to become the hero of your own story over the next 14 years. Because this is what's been happening. This is how we've been programmed. We have become deeply familiar with orienting ourselves toward the other. We are familiar with caretaking and accommodating and sacrificing. All of these are Neptunian things, qualities. Self-sacrificing, accommodating the needs of others. This focus is familiar to your nervous system. It feels safe because it is known. So turning toward oneself can feel disorienting at first. When you do, you often discover how much has been neglected. You realize you have left your creative impulses unwatered for years. Certainly, that's what I've realized. Your ideas were never followed. You never followed through your wonderful ideas. Your inner messages were unanswered. All these calls, all these little love letters from your creative self were missed or ignored during Neptune's transit through Pisces. I want you to think back. Think back to as far back as 2011 and think about how many creative impulses were just shelved or ignored. You know, what did you just put aside so that you could be the caretaker, or because you had to accommodate others, or you had to sacrifice your creative ambitions, right? Our culture glorifies self-sacrifice, but much of the sacrifice serves systems that require people to surrender their time, their energy, their creativity, and worth in order to keep functioning. Living for everyone can become a way of avoiding responsibility for one's own creative path, right? So to live for yourself truly is not selfish. And to live only for others is often a way of just never fully living at all. I want that to sink in. I'm going to repeat it. To live for yourself is not selfish. To live only for others is often a way of never fully living at all. Now, many struggle to prioritize their creative work because they've learned to bypass their own needs for the sake of attachment and coherence, nervous system coherence, right? They want to keep feeling safe. Neptune makes this pattern visible. And now that he's in Aries, he's going to interrupt this pattern. Okay, you're going to realize, if you haven't already, how much you have given up, how much of yourself you have given up. All right, now that Neptune is in Aries. So I want to leave you with some practical steps or practical ways to work with Neptune going forward. And I'm probably going to insert some slides here. So the the first thing I want you to do. I want you to take authorship of your story. Begin to speak about your life as something you are actively shaping. Notice where you describe yourself as a victim of circumstances rather than a participant in this longer arc, this longer story of becoming. By the way, this language of I am a victim is very Neptune in Pisces language. We are done with that. We are now Neptune in Aries. You are no longer a victim, okay? You are now a participant and a co-creator. So ask yourself regularly, stop yourself often, weekly perhaps, and say, okay, what chapter am I in this life story of mine? Where am I? What chapter am I in? Perhaps it's more helpful to you if you are more used to avoiding, asking yourself, what chapter am I avoiding writing now or creating for myself, right? 2, I want you to treat confusion as a signal, not a failure. This is very important. People come to me saying, okay, I'm very confused. This is such a bad thing. Confusion is not failure. When there is a lack of clarity, it means that you are not being honest about something. So confusion often precedes a more honest identity. So in other words, where are you being dishonest? Where you're not being truly honest about something? That is why there is confusion. So point 2 here, I want you to treat confusion as a signal. All right. 3, reclaim your neglected creativity. Aries needs action. Neptune needs meaning. So choose one small, regular act that serves your creative or spiritual life. Not for productivity. I don't want you to increase your productivity. I want you to be faithful to the inner story that you're busy creating. So if you are wanting to be an author, a writer, for example, then you need to be writing every day. If you want to be a painter, then you need to be painting or doodling or doing something artistic every day. Let me know if that makes sense. So reclaim your neglected creativity. Point 4, I want you to watch for spiritual bypassing disguised as virtue. And I wrote about this in my Substack. So if you're not following me on my Substack, check out my Substack. There'll be a link to it in the description of this video. There are also free resources for you, by the way. So if you are not comfortable with astrological language, or you're new to astrology, or you just want to learn astrology, go and download my free astrology checklist. It will give you like a lot of information on how to download your birth chart for free, how to read it, really like very simple way to read your birth chart. But anyway, point 4, watch for spiritual bypassing disguised as virtue. Self-sacrifice, overgiving, and endless caretaking is not noble. It may feel noble, but it is not noble. Neptune in Aries asks whether these patterns are aligned with your actual purpose, with what you are here to do. I mean, some of us, this is actually our purpose, to be caregivers. Now, if it aligns with your purpose, if you are born to be a caregiver, then great. But if you are not, if you know you are avoiding your true purpose, then please check out where you are overgiving, self-sacrificing, and just, tending to others' needs constantly instead of tending to your own. And the 5th point and the last point here, again, I mentioned this in my Substack essay, is I want you to articulate your I am. There is no more powerful statement in the universe than I am. Okay? It's in the Bible. All the great mystics know this. Kabbalists know this. I am. Neptune in Aries gives unusual, incredible power to identity statements over the next 14 years. Speak them consciously, not affirmations for manifestation, but as truths that you are living or willing to live by. Okay? I am. Declare who you are, right? So the invitation of the next 14 years is going to be one of consciously engaging with this transit so that you will find yourself living inside a different story where you are no longer dissolving your identity so that you can meet with expectations, and so that you are not shaping your life according to the needs of others, but that you are shaping a life that feels authored, authentic, meaningful, and most importantly, alive, where you feel like you are alive and on fire, right? The heroic myth that is unfolding here for all of us is not about dominance. It's not about conquest. It's not about being above or more important than someone else. It's not hierarchical. It is about responsibility. It's about presence. So the courage to live your life, to bring out what is inside you, to bring it out. That's what's the most important now. It always has been, but I think Neptune in Aries is going to be is reminding us, has come round again, the zodiac, to say this moment, this moment in time, take it. Okay, right. If something stirred for you while you were hopefully watching this, and I know it's a bit longer than I thought it would be. You're welcome to share what you're noticing in the comments. And if you found this helpful, please do share it with someone and subscribe. Thank you for watching.